We just saw the largest decrease in overall pending home sales on a week over week basis for the first time since March of 2020. Is that just a fluke or a trend? Let's talk about that and more in this week's segment of Market Watch. Hi everyone, it's Joshua Barks here, associate broker with Keller Williams Realty Boise and team lead of the Barks & Co. real estate team. Thank you for tuning into this week's segment of Market Watch. If you're new to the channel, we talk about the Boise area housing market on a week over week basis, and then once a month we go into a deep dive into the market dynamics for our area, so both Ada and Canyon County. Next week is going to be the deep dive because those reports are supposed to come out this weekend, so I'm really excited to get my hands on those. But first off, can you believe it's the first week of December already? It feels like yesterday was Halloween and then poof, here we are, December. 4 more weeks left in the year and it'll be 2022. I don't know if that stresses you out, but it stresses me out. Let's get into this week's numbers. Really surprising information to see. The number of overall pending sales has dropped significantly for the first time on a week over week basis since what we saw during our shutdown in March of 2020. Though that does sound very sensational, overall pending is still outpacing supply, and the new pendings per week are also still outpacing supply. So let's get into those numbers and I can talk about that a little bit more. Overall active listings right now also dropped. So we have 544 active listings compared to last week's 588. Now, we had 79 new listings hit the market last week. This week, we only had 80 new listings hit the market. Now, this time last year, so in 2020, we had 82 new listings hit the market this week after Thanksgiving. So we're behind a little bit on new listings coming to market and ahead on the number of listings going under contract. So for the number of pending sales, last week, if you remember, we had 795 homes pending under contract overall, with 160 new pending contracts in that 1 week period. This week we have 688 pending overall, and only 125 went under contract in the last 7 days. Now that going from 795 to 688, having more than 100 homes in a decline is the biggest change that we've seen since March of 2020, when we had 140 decline in the number of pendings in just a 1 week time period. Now, a big part of that is we did have slightly more sales this week. So last week we had 169 homes close. This week we had 219. So that's really good there, being the end of the month / beginning of the month, being over 200. But again, a big part of it is we have 688 pending, which is more than what we had both last year, this time in 2020, but also in 2019. So when we had our normal market, we actually have more pending and fewer listings than what we had in 2019. More listings than what we had in 2020, but demand is higher than what we saw even in a normal hot sellers market in 2019. So I do think that this drop in the week over week is likely to be more of a fluke than an official trend, but I think it's very clear that we've officially entered into our winter market. Every holiday season, for the most part, by and large, in our area, we see a slowdown in our market overall as people shift their focus onto the holiday season and put home buying, home selling on the back burner, or even take their house off the market because they're going to have guests from out of town or whatever their reason is to take their home off the market and then relist after the new year. That's pretty common for our area. So that's what I think we're probably experiencing right now. Having only 544 active listings, I do think that number is going to continue to decline as we get towards the end of the year, because usually next week is the last big push of new listings coming to market for the year. That's typically what we see. That doesn't mean we're not going to see any new listings the following 2 weeks into the year, because we definitely have folks, traveling from out of town and whatnot, and it might be a good time for those sellers to try to capture those buyers while there's other sellers not on the market at that time because they took it off for the holidays or they're waiting until after the holidays. Now, when we have 544 active listings and 688 pending, demand, while it came down, is still significantly outpacing our available supply. So that doesn't mean the sky is falling, at least not yet. If this continues and we lose 100 a week, all the way through the end of the year, maybe that's going to be something more significant. But I do think what we're likely to see is just our slowdown that we typically experience this time of year for the holidays, and then we'll pick back up after the first of the year. But still having over 100 homes come off the market, even though only 80 came on the market, that's still pretty good as far as being a seller goes. So that's good news there. Again, it's still never been more crucial to price your home correctly right now, as well as just make sure that it's marketed really, really well and doing the things that you need to do to get the condition in the right place. Great photography, staging, things like that are so important right now, especially as the weather declines. Though the weather here, it kind of feels like we're at the beginning of April or end of April because it's been so warm for our area. So what we're seeing there is basically it's nice outside unseasonably, and so there are more activity going on outside. But overall in the marketplace right now, I think everyone is starting to really focus in on the holiday season, and especially because last year a lot of people weren't able to celebrate with their families, and this year being vaccinated and having less of a scare with the coronavirus, even though we know the looming threat of the Omicron variant or whatever. We have, I think that's the name of it. We have more people likely to visit family and actually have a real holiday, whereas last year they weren't able to do that. So I think people are even more inclined to be super focused on the holiday season and spending time with family because they didn't get to last year. So I think that's part of what's going on as well, in addition to just our seasonality, what we typically see in the wintertime. I hope all of that makes sense. If not, please let me know. Comments and below. You can always reach out to me directly as well. I want to make sure that if you have any questions or really if there's anything that I can do for you or somebody you know regarding real estate, or maybe just a good referral to handyman or anything like that, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be a resource for you and utilize me as a learning tool. That's one of the things that I find super exciting about real estate is I'm always learning new things, and being able to share that with you, not knowing what people would like, because I can really nerd out on this quite a bit. Not knowing what people like, I don't want to give too much information, so just let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. I am here to help. Well, until next time, next week we're going to go into our deep dive and take a look at the market dynamics for all of November, compare that to what we saw last year and in 2019. I'm expecting it to be fairly similar to what we talked about just today, where we have less inventory and more pending than what we had in both 2020 and 2019. Well, more inventory than we had in 2020 and less inventory than 2019 and more pending for both. Sorry about that. Okay, that's everything. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you next week for the deep dive into the market dynamics.